What we want to encourage you is that if you have thoughts that come into your head, ideas that seem kind of radical, that aren't ordinary, that your soul, who you are, is unique. It's very important to the universe, and that you can make a difference. We want to just, I think, encourage you to think differently. Even today, if something hits you as unique today, go chase it and see what happens with that.
Welcome to the Up Your Average podcast, where Keith and Doug give no-nonsense advice to level up your life. So buckle up and listen closely to Up Your Average.
Good morning, Caleb. How are you?
I am doing okay. How about yourself?
I'm wonderful. It's another great day at Gimbal Financial, and we are thankful that you all are taking time out of your day to join us today. We are celebrating this week that Caleb is officially a financial advisor. Congratulations.
Thank you.
What did you do that caused you to become official this week?
I took my Series 66 exam and passed it on Wednesday.
Tell our friends a little bit about what's on the Series 66.
It's a lot of regulatory rules, and I feel like that was the hardest part, knowing the numbers and everything. But then there's also just a broad overview of, I guess, the industry, different transactions or different stocks or bonds and different ways of trading in the market. So just a broad overview of it.
Before you opened your study guide the first time, did it ever occur to you that what you read in there would be what would be necessary to become a financial advisor?
No.
Do you perceive that you'll use what you had to study much on a day-to-day basis?
No. I mean, some of the information is probably good just to have like a base, because that's what it is. It's just like a base knowledge of everything. You didn't get too in depth with everything else, but yeah, I feel like most of the stuff I won't be using on a day-to-day.
Yeah, so Caleb gave me the test, a sample of the test over the weekend to see how somebody without studying, who's been in the business for a long, long time, would do. And I came cranking in at a 72.5%, which I was really proud of myself because I knew that they changed the rules so rapidly that I wouldn't have all of them in my head. And so if I could get that close, I could learn the new rules if it were necessary. So
Yeah.
but we are celebrating a little bit about life today. We're invited by our friend Angela, or I was a number of years ago, to speak to the Fraternal Order of Police about what I do, or about how you would manage your resources. And I began thinking, what would I tell these they were young police officers, what would I tell them about money that they couldn't click on a podcast with Dave Ramsey about? Because why would I need to come live and tell them to spend less than what you make? And so that started my brain rolling over these ideas. And nothing against Dave Ramsey. I just don't know that budgeting is all that in a bag of chips, because some people are more disciplined and more prone to spend less than they make, and some people are less disciplined. And I'm not sure the two ever transfer to be the other. Like, I don't think a non-disciplined person all of a sudden starts counting all their pennies.
Right.
Where would you find yourself? Would you be a spender or a saver?
Definitely a saver. I'm willing to spend like with hobbies and different stuff that I would enjoy my time with, but day to day, I try to save as much as I can.
And I'm biased that way. I don't really know, but I have other people in my life that are more biased spenders. And what I've discovered over time is that if all you are is a saver and you don't spend it, you'll accumulate a lot, but that doesn't mean much at the end of the journey. And so having spenders and savers in the same conversation or the same household actually can make life, I think, a little more interesting. So anyway, that when I was asked to speak to the FOP, I was like, I'm not going to talk about that. And so I went on to this research project, and I thought, what would I tell a young graduate, a recent graduate, are the 5 most important things that they need to know about their resources. And so I went out, I've got a lot of the financial advisor friends. I went out to all of them, asked that question to them. When I said young graduate, what comes to your mind when I say that, Caleb? Like, give me an example of who a young graduate is.
Just someone in their early 20s trying to figure life out, not really knowing. Yeah.
Yeah. And so that's a good lead into kind of our dialogue, because what I was thinking when I said young graduate was somebody that could be in their late teens because they just graduated from high school, or early 20s. And it was really interesting. My financial advisor friends all perceived I was talking about college. But what I was trying to give them the freedom to say that maybe college isn't the right thing. Maybe that's a bad financial plan to plan on college, because there's a lot of wonderful roles that don't involve college.
Yeah.
And like, you've got friends that are doing fairly well that didn't go to college, right?
Yeah.
And what are some of the things they did?
One started his own lawn care business. Another, I think, went into like aerospace school and was working on airplanes. And there are a couple other that are working and doing like community college, trying to save money and get through without getting debt.
So that was what I was projecting to my financial advisors friends, like what would that look like? And they gave me answers like, well, you would need to start your 401k, you need to start your budget. They gave me a whole bunch of things like that, and I thought that's not really worth me, like, for those police officers, it's not worth their time if that's all I gave them. So I kind of went through probably 200 answers of what they should do. I read through all those, and I thought, you know what, I'm doing my own. And really, I think that idea helped kind of formulate as a company how we view financial planning. And the first step to try to work with somebody is to think differently. The second step is to buy wisdom, because you can save yourself a lot of time. For example, if you weren't designed to go to college, but you were going to lock up a bunch of loans for college, it would make sense to maybe go talk to somebody before you did that, because that might save you a lot of brain time and especially a lot of money and heartache even. So buying wisdom was the second thing. We said, like what you do. In the olden days, I used to say, do what you like, but I had my opinion shifted on that, because not everybody gets to do what they like, but everybody has the choice with their attitude to like what you're doing today. And I think that way, and I appreciate people that think that way. And I just try to encourage people that way, that you can like what you're doing, even if it's not a very fun thing today. And then the fourth thing is to live adventurously. And because you don't really know how long you have on the planet, right?
Yeah.
And so by living adventurously, you can make the most out of your days. Even if you're working 10-hour days, you can make that 10-hour work day something adventurous along the way. And then the final thing that I found, that when I'm putting this outline together, that I was just thinking of who are the people that have gone through the journey and what have they done that's made the most sense. And the final thing that I saw is generosity wins. And what do you think of when you think about generosity, Caleb?
I think helping those around you. I mean, it doesn't even have to be monetary. It can just be giving your time to someone else that either needs some help or just needs someone to talk to.
Yeah, I think it's such a huge deal, because most people, when they breathe their last breath, their assets did not end at zero. And most people, when they breathe their last breath. Their balance sheet was not an IOU. Everybody tends to have a little bit left at the end. And if you shared a little bit of the money along the way, but more so if you shared your soul along the way, that you shared encouragement, that'd be a very generous way to live. And so I thought today we would spend our time really hammering that first one about thinking differently. And before I jump into it, I just wanted to throw you all out my view on thinking, that what I think is that who you are is not what you see, right? It's not this physical body, but who you are is your soul or your personality. And that then I believe is a three-part being. It's your mind, it's your thought process, it's your will. That's how you act, and your emotions and how you respond to it. And so you have a unique thought process and a unique emotional response and a unique will. We all do. And so if you're going to think differently, it requires you to use your unique thoughts to execute your will to basically improve the world. But what happens regularly is the world system tries to get us all to conform to a way of thinking. And that's really the opposite of capitalism. Capitalism is always thinking broadly and say, what if we did this or what if we did that? Whereas more of a socialistic thing is just keep doing the things the way we have. Just don't ever buck the trend. Just keep doing that. And so to think differently allows you, I think, an opportunity every day.
Yeah.
I thought I would give you guys a slideshow of maybe why Caleb has a little bit of a chance to think differently than others because of some of how he was brought up over the years. Let me see here. What do you guys think about this photo? This was young Caleb and me, and his sister had I don't even remember which one it was, do you?
No.
It might have been Kelly. She had the hair trimmers. She was giving me a haircut because, as you can see, that doesn't require a lot of effort from the tradesperson doing that. But she was also giving Caleb one, and she was supposed to give him a buzz, but she let the guard fall off and started right down the middle. And I knew he wasn't going to be excited when he looked in the mirror to see what had happened to him. And I said, hold on. So this was me thinking differently. I said, hold on, Kelly. Before we go forward with this, make Caleb look like me, and we'll at least have a laugh about this mistake that happened. And so this is one of my favorite photos of you. It's pretty hilarious. If you, I don't know if they call it child abuse today or what they would call it, but that was me thinking differently in a unique situation where his head was going to look just like mine. Then just what'd you say, it's 2021?
Yeah.
Caleb was thinking differently. I have no idea how you were thinking, but this is what Caleb brought to me, where he was thinking differently. We were trying to reproduce that photo, and he came rolling into Gimbal about where he's at right now, I think. And no, he's over here. And that haircut, I don't know. What were you thinking?
I honestly can't remember. I had just a straight mullet, probably most of COVID, and I think Casey curled it one day, and I liked how it looked, and I also liked that I could just roll out of bed and it didn't need any maintenance because it was already wild. So, but
this was post-COVID though. Like, you took this into public, didn't you?
Yeah.
So when you were thinking differently about that haircut, mullets weren't really a thing, I don't think, were they?
I think they made somewhat of a comeback, but
you were the front edge of that, is what I remembered, and I thought that was interesting. And so you had to think differently to get that kind of haircut, which you brought it in to show it to me before you took it home to Mom, if I recall, because I knew it was going to be a surprise to her.
yeah.
So then this I want to show. This doesn't have the two of us in it, but we thought differently as a family. We decided we were going to jump in that RV and drive from Indianapolis, Indiana to Anchorage, Alaska. I don't know if any of you have ever done that before, but you have to think a lot differently to do that. And there's a lot of thoughts that have to go into the planning. I think you could go do this on a impulsive thing, but there's a lot that it takes to get from point A to point B, B being Anchorage and then A being back to Indianapolis. And why I put this picture up there, you can see that the two windows up there are vertically on top of each other. Those were bunk beds. So we had humans jammed in this RV. And what the Alaskan highway is like, it's very treacherous and it's very difficult to drive, particularly an RV on this road. And this was pretty much early on in Canada. We weren't really that close to Alaska yet at this point. And those of you who are watching or hanging out with us, if you look at this picture, what strikes you about this picture? Give you a second to think about it. Caleb, what would you say is notable about this particular picture?
There's nothing around.
Nothing around? Well, and if that is our RV, I wonder who took the picture.
Yeah.
The answer is me. And if I'm the driver, I think I was the only driver at that point in time. And if I'm the driver of that RV, how in the world would you suspect that I'm taking that picture? Caleb, you want to let them in on why I would have maybe been taking that particular picture?
We were waiting on a tow truck, lost the tire, popped the tire.
And to realize that could happen, there were a lot of thoughts that had to go into the process of putting an RV trip to Alaska in place. We had to think about what would happen if we had damages. We'd had to think about who would we call on the cell phone. There were just a lot of things. And even with that planning, I couldn't fit in all the things. I think Kelly and I think, budgeted $5,000 in repairs on that trip. And that's a lot for any vacation, just for repairs. But we also planned about like what would we do for cell service. And back when we did this was over a decade ago, there weren't a lot of available satellite phones as there are today, an inexpensive thing. And so as we were working on our budget, one of the things we thought differently about, we thought, well, maybe we won't get a satellite phone for the trip. And that proved to be eventful there, because waiting on the tow truck, what we discovered is that there was only one seat in the tow truck. And so not only did we need a tow truck out there where there was no cell service, we needed a taxi cab to get the rest of the family there. So to think differently in life, it's going to be an anxious thing. If you're going to get a mullet, if you're going to drive an RV from Indiana to Alaska, it's going to be really challenging. Like if you think about things that you've thought differently about, Caleb, there's things that you've done that I've just observed and so, I don't see a lot of people doing that. But can you think of anything recently you've done that you thought differently than others?
I'm not sure about recently, but I think just growing up, or even within the past couple of years, just making purchases, whether it's clothes or doing an experience or something, I think of it more as what my hourly rate is at work and how much that costs. So go about like, is this t-shirt worth 3 hours of work? Or if it is, then I'd consider buying it. And if it's not, then I'm not going to buy it because I don't want to put that much time into a t-shirt. Or
I love that. Like thinking differently like that. A friend of mine taught me that principle, Bob Warren, shout out to Bob. And he taught it, or it landed in my head, was about a car. And even though I was blessed with a pretty good income most of my working life, even as a young man, and I could buy a car, I just knew how hard I would work every day I would come in here, and I know what my hourly wage is. And I'd like, would I work that hard for that car? And when Doug joined Gimbal, I was driving one of the top 10 ugliest cars, the Chevy Lumina, and he couldn't wrap his head around why, because he kind of had an idea what my income was. He couldn't wrap his head around the idea why I was driving that Lumina. I don't even know if you remember the Lumina. Was that pre your memory? Yeah. And the reason I was driving it is because it didn't cost me any more hours of my life to drive the same car that was already paid for than getting rid of that and buying a new one and have to spend more hours of work to get that. And at that season in life, I really appreciated having more free time to be with you guys. And so to prioritize my situation in my life in a way where I had to think differently, that I didn't, part of what I had to think differently was I had to, even if I was going to a new potential client, I had to think, I do not care what they think about this ugly vehicle I'm landing in. And a lot of young financial advisors couldn't do it. They might go out and buy a fancy luxury car to try to impress the person that was showing, that they're going to try to do business with. One of our clients, Mary, I think her anniversary, she's passed now, but she came in and sat down at my desk with me, and she said, I tell all the young girls to don't buy the guy with the shiny car, but buy the guy, or to marry the guy with the shiny car, but to marry the guy with the old beat up car, because he may have that old beat up car, but he's got a checkbook in the glove box with a lot of money in it. And I always laughed about that. I just thought it was funny, is that you never know how somebody's doing based on what they have or how they dress or anything like that, but how they think will have a big influence on a lot of things.
Yeah.
I'd say about June a couple of years ago, you thought differently than most 20-year-olds did.
Yeah.
Talk to me about that.
I got married back in June of 23. I was 20 years old at the time, and I think I turned 21 a week or two after the wedding. But
so you couldn't legally buy alcohol when you got married.
And our honeymoon was to Hawaii, and we couldn't check in to the resort unless someone was 21. Luckily, we went like 2 weeks after we got married rather than right after the wedding, because otherwise neither of us would have been 21 at the time.
So tell me about that. So you're pondering how many hours it would take you to buy a t-shirt based on your wages, but you're going to Hawaii on your honeymoon.
Yeah. I mean, part of that, we got help getting out there, but it was still a lot of money with even like plane tickets getting out there and just all the food and experiences while you're there. But that's probably one part for me that I don't mind spending money on is experiences. And that's probably because how the Tyner family grew up, just going on trips and exploring God's creation. But
being stranded on the Alaskan highway,
yeah, right.
Just knowing something's going to work out, huh?
Yeah, so like it hurt my bank account clicking purchase on those plane tickets or spending $8 or $10 on a box of Cheez-Its while there. But I mentally prepared for that like beforehand and knew that was what was going to happen. But I was just able to enjoy the time there, and I don't know if or when I'll ever be back. So it was once in a lifetime experience.
So even you had to think about the big decision, but even in the big decision, you had to think differently because you had to think, okay, I know I hate paying for these Cheez-Its, rather than being angry and not buying them, but you bought them. You just said, this is just part of the ride.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. So what you did also that I think would be helpful to others as they would think about it seems like you thought differently during your education process to get your degree, because if I remember right, you were you had a bank account before you went to Hawaii,
Yeah.
and it had a greater than normal balance for a 20-year-old, right?
Yeah.
So how did that happen?
I mean, I would take that back all the way to high school. Was taking college courses in high school, and I graduated in 3.5 years. And that senior year, so the last semester, I took 4 college credits
In high school.
at Fisher's High School. Yeah,
So that took off some of your time at Murray State then.
took off some of my time. So when I got to Murray, I only had like a semester of strictly gen eds, and then the spring freshman year, I could start taking accounting classes and business classes, which led me to getting an internship my sophomore year, spring semester, when most accounting internships start your junior year. But I was able to kind of progress through the courses down at Murray State quicker than normal. And I think I also took some summer classes between freshman and sophomore year to allow that as well.
So
I think freshman year at our transitions class, which is like a 1 hour class between high school transitioning into college, the accounting professor brought in some upperclassmen who have had internships just to, I guess, introduce that thought to freshmen, because I had no idea what public accounting or anything of that nature was going into college. So I talked to my advisor about that, and he's like, I think you could probably do it sophomore year, like you're set up to do that. And I think later that day after I talked to him, he asked me, because this is Western Kentucky, he asked me, how far away is Carmel, Indiana from where you're from? I was like, that's 10 minutes away. And short story is I got connected with an accounting firm up here and got an internship, and it paid pretty well.
And so thinking differently on a lot of those things enabled you to not only kind of learn beyond book knowledge, but learn intellectually, kind of soulish who you really are about things. And I would imagine that if you got paid pretty well to be an accountant, you had to think differently to become a financial advisor, because it's a whole different kind of way of seeing the world. There's some overlap in some of that, but how did you think through that process? Because I think most parents would expect their son or their daughter, and accounting is a great career path. It's going to pay a lot of money. They would expect to just keep pushing you forward on that. And we have a lot of friends that have done really well in that area.
Yeah. I mean, I prayed about it and I thought about it for a while because I didn't know what I wanted to do. And I think part of the thought process was not knowing how long you were going to work. And I mentally prepared, if I was going into accounting, I could probably do that for 3 to 5 years, working 55, 60-hour weeks for 3.5 months out of the year. But I knew, like, once I started having a family and all of that, I would not enjoy, one, being away that long, and two, it just takes a toll on your body, waking up, doing 12-hour days, going home, being tired, waking up and doing the same thing for 3 months. So I knew that wouldn't probably be a long-term situation. And like, I didn't know whether to do that or this. And part of that was not knowing when you would retire and not knowing if I were to make the transition to Gimbal, if I would have time to learn from you and just have you as a mentor while at work.
Yeah, that's probably a career highlight for me to get to mentor you and to explain this and help you meet some friends. And probably as long as my health maintains, I'm going to go another 7 years, at least till 70. That's the goal. We'll see. That's thinking a little differently too, because a lot of people don't work that long. But I'd have to say that having you here has energized my thoughts, and maybe I go to 75. I don't know. Just see how my health holds out in that. And as we're talking about thinking differently, we're just giving Caleb's example of some of the things that he's experienced. But what's really important to this idea to me is that the financial services industry for which we are in, they're not always telling you their pure motives of why they're doing things. And mostly the motives are going to be for that industry and that particular company. And we've thought differently as a firm over the years to say, what if as a financial services firm, instead of thinking about us first, we think about others first? So what if we selflessly help our clients get to where they want to be and keep our fingers crossed as a business model that'll take care of us? And so what we know is there are a lot of ideas in the financial services industry that have been just repeated like a drumbeat to you that this is how you should live. You should retire at age 60 or 65. Retirement is the great ambition. And what we've discovered is a lot of the ideas that have been projected and repeated and have become common knowledge really aren't very wise. And we're saying by wisdom, it may not be wise to quit working at 50, 60, or 65 for a lot of reasons. And so what we want to encourage you is that if you have thoughts that come into your head, ideas that seem kind of radical, that aren't ordinary, that your soul, who you are, is unique. It's very important to the universe, and that you can make a difference, and that we want to cheer you on and bring our wisdom to your unique thoughts and see if we can't help you find a better life in those ideas. So we want to just, I think, encourage you to think differently. Even today, if something hits you as unique today, go chase it and see what happens with that. And our main desire is to help you always up your average in the way you see the world. And so we hope this has been helpful for you, and we look forward to hanging out with you guys next time.